Okay. I'm a little bit scared of.
You've come with a lot of notes and like
Oh shit.
versus us where we have basically no preparation
Really
whatsoever.
did write a lot there. It's gonna go out the window.
Just
Kara
so-
did the same thing.
You know, because I kind of have this journalistic approach to things, I want them to kind of be right. Not everything has to be perfect, but I like things to be a bit explained or to have some kind of background
You've
to
come
it.
to the wrong podcast.
I feel very much at home with this.
It's a very good intention that you came with.
Chris is like, wow, she's organized.
DJ Khaled.
It's been 2 weeks, you're out of practice.
Sure.
Rachel in the house, wiki wiki.
We shouldn't.
You want to add any noises?
It's me.
Welcome to the XYZ podcast. We're here. I'm here with my two main men. And we've got the lovely Christian Breaker.
G'day.
We've got the fresh from Italy, Mr. Dean Ira.
Ciao.
I'm Harry Fox, and we are very lucky today to have a very special guest. We have Rachel Fassbind with us. Thank you for joining us, Rachel, for taking the risk.
Your friendly neighborhood feminist.
That's kind of creepy, actually. It's like
You should be scared.
I see someone who's like climbing into gardens and stuff. And so Rachel, if you came to our live show, Rachel actually had the guts to get up on stage and tell us a story. It was super cool of you to do that.
Killed it.
And then I think things got so kind of like misogynistic that Rachel came to the podcast today to shut us down.
Shut you down. Shut you down.
No, I think the quote before what you said, Rachel, was mostly directed at Harry.
You two guys. All right. So here's the difference: is that I'm not hiding it. That's the only difference here.
Don't say we're hiding it.
You're
Hiding what? Misogyny?
No, hiding your natural masculinity.
No. Masculinity has different forms.
Behind a facade of
Rachel.
Whatever. We'll get into that soon.
Masculinity does have different forms, and as you just said, we're so used to this typical cis man and how men should be, as you just called it, natural masculinity. And then there's like different forms of where men don't agree to that, or they're just not like typical men. And then for those men, where are they in society? And also when women change so much right now with all this feminism and all this redefining gender, where is the new man? What should we do with them?
I like how you dive straight into that.
Boom.
It's like an on-topic journalistic point.
Okay, but wait. Before we dive in, can we find out a little bit about you?
Yeah, there's no context. Everyone just thinks you're a Spider-Man in a pink
since
costume.
I shared a sex story on your live podcast,
we started at the lowest level. So you, I hope I'm not crossing lines. So you're a journalist for the NZZ, is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And
do you want to mention that name?
Is that okay? Or
well, you can, yeah.
Maybe
Doesn't matter.
We can. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Shout out to NZZ.
Rachel does not represent the NZZ right now. She's just here on our stupid podcast talking to us. And you also do this is it women in leadership or women
the female leadership?
Female leadership.
Exactly.
Powerful.
Yeah, where we empower especially younger women to get comfortable with leadership positions, but also in the business world. No
grannies allowed or what?
No grannies.
Ageist.
No, we're quite open, but it's kind of, we attract more younger women.
Sure.
So can I ask, is this, how is this organization working? Is this like, how do you organize? How do you attract people to join you?
So we're kind of built up like a startup, and Sandra has been working as a coach for 5 years, especially for women and especially in teams or leadership. So she has a great network, and that's how we attract these women, or that's how these women find to us. It's either women who want to get into their careers or get them launching, or also if they want some change, or if they take on a different role. For example, if they become mothers, or for example, if they, get a different position.
So how do you empower them?
A jacket with the shoulder pads, right?
Yeah, get rid of the heels. No, what we do is, I think women, well, that's a very general topic. I think women do need some more empowerment because often they face different kind of insecurities. So that's kind of, we look at their insecurities. We also look at their skill sets, also their strengths, and normal coaching, normal coaching stuff where we give them a skill set and tools.
That sounds a bit like Dean. Dean's very good at spotting insecurities, but with it.
I don't know. Okay.
Sorry, I'm going straight to the attack, Dean.
Yeah, I can tell. No, insecure is a more introspective thing. Talking about insecurities, Rachel, are you like self-aware? Have you like explored your insecurities? Because I know you're one of the most confident people on like your social media, which I really admire. But I'm sure it's taken a lot of work to get to learning about those insecurities for you.
Hey, I think, most people who seem very confident, they faced hard times or they were in different spots in their lives, and that's why they built them up. Also, like comedians, they say like, oh, comedians are always that funny. Yeah, you're that funny because you kind of learned from these hardships.
It's because we're crying inside.
It's the sad clown syndrome.
Please love me.
I think I've seen this in business is that I think women tend to be more risk averse and more about finding consensus. And I went to this event once called Women in Tech. And I don't know if you know Valerie Vulera, if the name is okay, whatever. It was an event for women, which somehow I got invited to. Actually, that's my other persona where,
the fake office persona.
Exactly, where I was being so nice. And
never seen that guy.
There was a really interesting conversation at one point about. There was a lady who gave a presentation. She was the chief product manager at a startup. And she said, when I joined in the first month, they threw me into a customer meeting and I'd hardly had time to know anything about the product. And I had to answer questions and sell it. And she said in retrospect, she was deeply grateful that they pushed her to do that. Meanwhile, there was another lady there whose response to that was, well, that's the man's way of doing that. That's not okay. And there seems to be there's two mindsets around this stuff. I chimed in with I think if you're in any leadership position, you're gonna get unpredictable situations that you have to handle.
Can we before we dive into this whole failed feminism versus good feminism, because that's an interesting topic. Also, the idea that masculinity, because I want to define this first, toxic masculinity and these labels that we attach to things. I believe that those things belong to both genders. And people from both genders, I know there's only two genders, fuck off. I'm just saying in this context, leave me alone. In these contexts, people hide behind these insecurities, use these things as power to manipulate other people, which is a form of power struggle, dominance, etc., etc. Okay, agree with that?
I agree. Nothing worse than a toxically masculine woman.
Agreed.
And that's the joke.
It's not a joke because there are women like that.
There are, and when we come back to the business world is, a lot of it is built on toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
On all this pressure, you always have to perform, you always have to be this strong. And that those are very male tendencies. But nobody can always be like that, not even men. And then there comes in the toxic. When is it healthy and when not anymore?
Yeah.
That's when cocaine starts.
Yes.
Here
comes the banker.
Yeah. No, it's this weird thing where
lowers empathy.
Yeah, you don't. It's not just cocaine; it's also other stuff. But you basically, I find it interesting how you describe it. You build this wall of the persona that you should be. And you become that person over time.
And that's where you get lost.
Yeah.
That's where you have such a disconnection from who you actually are to be this performing person all the time. And that's also, the whole business world is like that. And that's why I believe that we need feminism to kind of change that, because we have so little empathy. We have such harsh rules, and not just women are suffering, especially women who have a family or want to, not just work all the time. Also men, the business world was built for men who can work 40 hours a week, who have a wife at home who cooks, takes care of the household and takes care of the children. Yeah. Nobody, or, you know, not many people have that nowadays anymore. If I could just go to work and somebody would take care of everything else, that would be easy. But the level of stress that is put on us because of this, let's say, patriarchy or toxic masculinity, I think everybody is struggling from it.
It's interesting because something that I find sometimes when I'm talking to male friends is that there is a certain distance to the word feminism. They don't like saying as a guy I'm a feminist somewhat can be frowned upon. You know what I mean? It's just,
let me put that in other terms. It sounds like you're trying to get laid.
You say that. I have heard you say that before. It's a weird thing, which is completely not true. You can be a staunch feminist as a man without being this little puppy.
Which is super interesting. You know, it starts with locker room talk.
Yeah.
When do you, as a guy, tell your friends, "Hey guys, this is not okay"?
Yeah.
The way we're talking, we're being so disrespectful, and I think men are.
Oh shit! Like, wait a second.
We called you out of bunch, Harry.
No, not even on the podcast. Our locker room talk is off mic, and it gets pretty bad sometimes.
Yeah, but it's not sexist or misogynistic generally.
Okay, this is getting interesting.
Let me explore this a step further, because there are images. The only reason why we seem to have this discussion in the first place is because there are perceptions. We say certain words and then we combine that with, that guy is just a douchebag or he's under the thumb. That's a big one. It's like, you know, the old ball chain and stuff. It's that sort of behavior that when you say that as a man, I'm a feminist, you're associated with something that's automatically more feminine.
Pussy whipped.
Pussy whipped. Thank you. Yeah. You're no longer a man.
It's so gay.
Yeah, it's gay. Thank you. Yeah. I was trying to scoot around the word.
Wow, men are so scared of being gay.
Yeah.
Like for women, if I would be like, I make out with other women every now and then, it's so hot. If you guys would share that kind of fantasy, it would be kind of weird. And it starts there because we have this perception of men, how they should be.
Yeah.
And whenever a man would like to explore something else, it's like, oh no, you have to put you back in the box.
Okay, I mean, for me, the thing where I have an issue with in fact, it's the whole thing. I just don't like people identifying with things.
Labeling.
To say I'm this or I'm that, because the moment you do that, you stop being a sane human being, or you've basically delegated. Yeah, you've othered, and which means you believe in something and that you haven't fully explored necessarily for yourself. Then when someone says, "Hey, this thing you just did, I don't like," it's attacking your whole system. So it's the similar thing you see in religion. I would rather people explore their own identity comfortably on their, without needing to form a group. And that's not gender specific. So that's my deep thought underneath all.
Not gender specific.
Yeah, where my grumpy stuff comes from. So when I hear a guy saying I'm a feminist, it's like what? Like, what is that? Like, there are so many things about men that do, you're either going to deny things about what makes you a male. And I'm not talking about stereotypes. I'm just talking about if I see a lady walking down the street and then she bends over to pick something, there's a little bit of thong above the jeans,
and you spank her.
Yeah, I didn't go that far. I just see that because I wasn't looking, but it's just there. That has an effect on me.
You're allowed to look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
they're going to look at you too. Not that they would.
And then the terrible thoughts about what I want to do to her. I just, you're
allowed to have those terrible thoughts.
Exactly. But the thing is partly that is a nature of how we get turned on.
But you're allowed to have that.
Sexual direction. But the thing is, it's just to me, these things come into conflict when you say there's a group dynamic of there's like I'm a feminist. I can't be a feminist. I don't believe I can.
Okay, let's go meta with this, Harry, because you're on a great point, and I would love to hear Rachel. And there's going to be conflict with this, but if we go meta, I think that labeling these things, othering others, is a form of discrimination, and I really think that the feminist movement has failed. I say that.
Ooh,
this
shit.
is, yeah.
Can I hit the button?
Dean said something crazy. I say it because from inner thoughts and my will for life and love, I believe everyone should be equal, have power and love for each other, etc., idealistic, environment for everyone, right? Race, gender, who cares? Nobody cares. But when you start labeling and othering, it's just the exact same system copied and flipped on its head. Toxic masculinity, men in power, manipulating subordinates or opposite genders, etc. You just changed it, made it exactly for women, flipped it on its head. And I'm not saying everyone does this, but I've experienced feminists, beautiful, amazing, intelligent women who are angry, and they are allowed to be, they should be, but they've started labeling me and blaming me without even consulting my real opinion. They just kind of stop me in my tracks and say, that's toxic masculinity. I'm not going to hear your opinion any further, which I don't see a difference to a guy saying, oh, you're a woman. Stop right there. I'm not going to listen to your opinion. Exact same thing. No?
Yeah, totally get that. And I totally get the whole labeling thing. But we live in a world where labeling everything seems to make it easier. We label everything all the time.
Sure.
And then also what I understood, from the whole anger that comes into play, which is super interesting with this whole anger, the radical feminism, they are angry. They want to tear down the whole patriarchy, change the whole system.
Great.
Fuck the police,
Fuck the police. Yeah. Not the Israel. Fight the power.
And I get that because mostly it's very hurt people.
Yeah.
Underneath. But what I also get is, if they would be conscious of these emotions, they could channel them in a better way or in a different way.
Correct.
They chose anger. Yeah. Like, for example, the example before with Harry and when he sees a woman, it's natural. It's natural to feel some certain emotions. But then also, how conscious are you about them? Now, for example, again, the business world. When you as a man have these thoughts and then also they take over and you see women just in this one particular way, that's if you're not conscious about it. And I think feminism wants to make many things conscious. For example, the French track coming up very soon, they talk about care work. Most of us are not aware how much effort and energy women put in to take care of their families and their homes. And nobody sees it, nobody pays them for it. And I think feminism is about raising awareness.
Do you know? My craziest experience with this is, what happens a lot in the finance world. I can only talk for the finance world in this one. Is you do a Christmas party where you invite partners to say thank you. I was, this is not a joke. I've seen this multiple times happening where it it would probably be good to invite the wives. What are you on about?
Which is actually even more insulting.
No, it's
what
super
kind of
insulting.
Pussy in the office had that bright idea?
It's super toxic insulting because it kind of acknowledges the problem, but not actually offers a solution.
They think they've solved it.
I have a career because I have a woman at home looking after my cums that I had in her.
Yes. And behind every successful man is a woman, they say.
Yeah.
And, I see so many really talented, amazing women, and they put all their energy into their partner. Yeah. And, of course, vice versa, too, but way more for men. And then men have all these great successes, and they can do whatever they want. And it's like, okay, but who actually paid for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, to me, okay, we do have a topic today, but to me, just to wrap that thing up, for me, the thing I think also Switzerland is a little bit behind other parts of the West on this stuff.
Do you know why?
The patriarchy.
The Appenzell. And
what is super interesting, Switzerland didn't have any big wars the last couple of 100 years. So the other countries like England, Italy, Germany,
that's really
many
interesting.
men died or were hurt in the war or were in prison. So the women had to build up, they called the Trümmerfrauen, for example, in Germany. They built up all the cities. So kind of France, so okay, that's what women can do. So let's actually
Maybe
support
have
them.
have a job.
Have them a job, or, you know, maternity leave. All the other countries around us have way longer maternity leaves, but only the countries who were in war in the last 200 years.
It's interesting
That's
that
really
women's suffrage in the UK is directly linked to factory workers during the war.
Yes.
So the big leaders of the feminist movement basically walked out of the factories when they stopped making bombs.
Yeah,
Men really aren't good for anything.
Right.
But I mean, I think the thing is, so as I understand it, is like there's waves of feminism, and like first wave, second wave is more about. So first wave, I'm summarizing in a stupid way, is like votes. Second wave is more about like pay equality. Third wave, I forget now. I'm getting too stupid, but I get like
Outsourcing birth.
no, it's much more about genuine equal opportunity. And then fourth wave is about dyeing your hair blue and screaming on social media.
So right now we're kind of still in the third wave, but as you said, the fourth wave, like the third wave started in the 90s. And it was kind of to finish off the second wave. The second wave was in the 60s and 70s, where women with college degrees realized, oh, we got these great degrees and these great educations, but we can't do shit with it.
Yeah.
So now women are kind of, you know, changing that narrative, and now we kind of want everything equal.
Yeah, which is fair enough. I guess my point is that for me, what's weird is that I grew up with this stuff in the UK. Like, I think the UK was quite far ahead on a lot of these things. And to me, what's been surprising in Switzerland, where like some of the jokes I've made on this podcast, if I made them in England, it would be, the context is irony or sarcasm. It doesn't actually, it's so ridiculous. Like the majority of wealth somewhere in the early 2000s is now in the UK in the hands of women. So this has been, it's kind of like long done. And to me, coming here, seeing also the Frauenstreik, like some of this stuff is, it's like kind of like a bit of a time warp kind of thing, but I guess things are catching up fast.
But you talk about equality with the Frauenstreik, like Harry mentioned, and this is also part of that thing that I was saying about failed feminism. Because during the Frauenstreik, I heard that there were a lot of women saying, "No men allowed."
Yes, they're radical feminists. Like, I was part of the organization, and the main, let's say the main leaders, they were like, no men. We want the men to do care work. They can take care of the children. They can cook the food. They can be part of it, but we don't want them to walk with them. And, you know, I'm not that radical. So I was like, okay, I want to understand. Then at the day in Zurich, we had 100,000 people walking with 100,000 women. Many of them, you know, were so liberated, not real clothes on. And, you know, even just wherever you would watch, you would see women. And that, you know, then I got it. Then I got why it was important to them to just have thousands of women at the same place, because that is real empowerment. Because especially, you know, it's mainly the elderly leader women, and they must have experienced that so often in their life, where they walked in a room and they were the only woman. Like, we organize events for the NZZ, and I see, I don't know, 5 to 10% women normally. And that must be so hard. You walk in a room and again, you're the only woman.
Boys
and it's
club.
It's a boys club.
So is it about agency? Is that what it comes down to? So if
Dude, what are you using a word like agency on our podcast for? This is getting too intellectual. Stop being about agency.
I'm not asking excellent. My ego is threatened.
No, to me, what was interesting about Frauenstreik last year is that I saw at the end on Langstrasse a bunch of guys standing around who'd kind of been there, and what the look on their face was, I am so getting laid tonight. And they definitely were getting
coming back
laid
to this.
No, it's true. But because you could see it was a really weird look. It's like the same as like a little bit like after our live show. It's just like people on a high. No, it wasn't. It wasn't guys who were like, oh, I've like pulled a girl. It was more like they supported their girlfriends. Their girlfriends or wives or whatever were super happy and had enjoyed the day and felt like something had happened. And these guys had gone into a more humble state. but also they were going to get laid. You could see it.
Well, of course, if your, you know, partner is so empowered and so happy and feels so strong, that's a completely different energy she brings into
Exactly.
wherever you go.
Yeah. Okay. So now you can use the word agency.
No,
Sorry.
no, that ship has not sailed. I'm not using big words anymore. Fuck off. Jesus Christ.
I mean, we're trying to lower the tone a little bit. Sorry, I had to lower the tone. Now we're riffing just because Dean has disappeared.
No, it's all right.
And we want to actually get into the topic.
So, yeah, introduce this, because what everyone has read on the title of the podcast that is listening to us right now is, what are men good for? And you came up with that idea, Rachel, right? That was your idea for the podcast?
I would have loved to talk about feminism, but then we had this little moment after the podcast, and I think you were a bit drunk, but you looked me in the eye and were like, what were men good for? And we were like, no idea, right?
Yeah, I think that's it's an interesting way to flip the topic.
Men are the worst thing ever. Fuck it. What are they good for? They don't even make me orgasm.
Today's topic.
Yes,
Rachel's got experience.
Orgasm equality. It does not exist.
That's
I
not
talked
true.
to so many girls. When I talked to my girls, I was like, and how was it? You know, when I said whatever, there's no way we're
You've never
close
met
to
a giver.
orgasm.
Who of you, like, okay.
Don't act like you're a giver too.
No. Just chill the fuck out.
Oh, sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm not sensitive.
I'm very proud of this. My cum ratio is like 10 to 1 for sure. I take antidepressants for that.
Do you need me to get some references? Like,
I don't want to fucking speak to.
Gentleman doesn't.
no, because actually it's interesting. It's interesting that how is it guys still don't know how to do this shit? It's like, I'm just thinking this could be my future career to explain.
Because everyone watches porn too much, and they think if you just do this finger shit really, really hard, then she squirts, and that's an orgasm.
There is educational porn. There are porn videos where they actually explain how to do it right. Like, go look at the internet. The whole shit's on the internet. It's like a manual.
It's
Grab
not
her by the neck
the
and choke that
13-year-olds watch, you know.
Okay,
They don't watch educational porn. I don't
I'll
think.
just say on
Unfortunately.
Reddit they have a great subreddit on sex, and they
Man,
have
fuck Reddit, dude.
no fuck you for fucking Reddit. Reddit they have the sex forum is really good. Like they talk about all this stuff, and they talk
They got
about
good gifts.
a whole bunch of stuff for advice for men and women
Wow.
on all kinds of topics about sex. And you
Yeah,
have
they sell dick pills and what's the
they
big
don't.
one?
They have, for example, they have women that go, every time I have sex, I'm in incredible pain. It's like people are all, and all that stuff gets discussed on there. It's actually really, really fascinating.
I had
So,
a weird sex experience yesterday.
congratulations.
No. I was at a sex shop.
Oh, okay.
And for a special friend of mine, I was helping her buy a wireless vibrator.
Oh, yeah.
Wait.
we did a podcast.
We talked
on
about
this.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, these ones.
And I mean, she didn't feel uncomfortable, but like she was like, "Come with me, come help me choose." And I was like, "What? I can't really help you. I'm gonna get distracted with all the 22-inch dicks and stuff." But like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm comfortable in these spaces, and like, I'm a giver, Rachel, as well. So I was like, "Yeah, this will be good for you. This is a good one. Like, what about this? Try this. This is a vibrator. Like, do you like that one? What about this one? You know?" And also the women behind the counter were like really comfortable and cool and like chill. And we're like, well, like laughing and having a good time. And I was like, "Where's the butt plugs? I'm a virgin. Please help me." You know? And we were laughing.
Which was this at Sensual? The
Magic X, but
okay, yeah.
shout out to Magic X. Thanks for sponsoring this episode.
Thank you.
There was a couple next to us, older two, and they came in and like I wasn't paying attention to them. We were just doing our own thing, and they felt incredibly uncomfortable because we were loud. We scared them off. And I was like, as an adult, like these are older couple, they're adults. Why the fuck do they feel, insecure at a sex shop?
Yeah, it's generational. I mean, on the one level, you say porn is to blame, but also porn has created massive liberation. Like people are actually. I mean, we lived in a world where it's like
a lot of limp boners.
No, it was.
I can shit on someone's chest. Yes.
Look, in the past, it was like cowboy movies. Yeah, it's great killing people, but sex is a huge taboo. Sex has become like like nothing now, which is, I think,
That's
actually
just American prudishness. Like,
Although, who played that Jedi in Star Wars? Ewan McGregor. He was doing he plays a gay fashion designer. I can't remember the
I haven't
name.
watched it yet, but I'm planning to.
Gay sex scenes with Ewan McGregor. And I believe he's straight.
Okay.
He does an amazing fucking job, and it's beautiful. Like I was like, oh my God, they're fucking. And he's like,
I want to get in on this.
hey, with Ewan McGregor, I'd fucking do that. He's a hop his ass.
I said it many times. I would go gay for Idris Elba tomorrow.
All right, dude. Let me just say one.
Russell Brand. Who would you go gay for, Harry?
Yeah, Idris Elba would certainly
He'd stretch you out.
I don't want. Yeah, I don't think I want to receive. Yeah, I want to. Certainly, I don't want to receive Idris.
I think it would be tough too.
It's a traumatic experience.
So what are men good for if they cannot receive?
If they can't even give orgasms or receive, what are they good for?
So first of all, like little thing on the timing, let's allow more time because we mumbled around a lot. We can re-edit.
No, we go longer.
So today's topic is
Longer than Harry's sex life.
what are men actually good for?
We're good for killing animals.
Awkward silence.
Yeah, right? I thought Harry was immediately like, this, and this.
Well, I won't give you the answer.
We weren't looking at you for the answer.
Wait, is there a right answer for this?
Well, I
Ooh,
guess
interesting.
the way we can begin this is the first thing we could ask is, are men having a crisis? Do you think men are in crisis?
What do you mean?
Like a crisis?
No, we're sitting here like wealthy and fat and, ladies in the kitchen making us sandwiches. What? Men are not in crisis. What are you talking about?
Well, for example, you've got, what have you got? You got incels, you got this whole red pill thing, you got endless videos on YouTube for how to get women to like you.
The discrimination from failed feminism is maybe giving rise to a discriminated class of men who are like,
you're so Trumpy now.
Actually,
what do you mean Trump? What?
No, you don't call it feminism anymore. You just call it failed feminism.
No, there's good feminism, but then mostly failed feminism.
But I mean, okay, little anecdote. So a friend of my son, one day I get home and for some reason I'm talking to two of them and the topic is feminism. So I mentioned the word feminism. His friend, the moment I said feminism, he goes, feminism, oh, isn't that autism for women? Like, bam, he said it like that. And it made me realize, because I pay a little bit attention to my son's social media use, is there is like a filter bubble around kind of, it is kind of toxic around like all kinds of misogynistic memes and this kind of stuff.
But that's it's cultured for him based on his searches and his
once you get into it, once your friends start sharing that with you, whatever, this stuff goes up.
Especially men who are not in tune with their own sexuality in either way have a problem with feminism, and they are in crisis.
They're deeply insecure.
How in what way would you describe crisis?
Maybe some kind of identity crisis, because if they're not in tune with themselves, if they're not happy, I don't know, with their bodies, with their sexuality, with anything, if they're uncomfortable, so that will trigger them. So, and they don't really know how to deal with it. So they're just angry. They're just hating.
But this is interesting to me because when I went to school, metrosexuality was a trendy thing because David Beckham shaved his fucking arms or something.
That's why you started dressing like that.
Yeah, exactly. So... Did you remember this? This was a phase in like the 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, where men suddenly wore
man bags,
deodorants, and then it was and then there was this whole thing. It's like, oh, you're not a man anymore, and blah blah blah. And I thought at one point, oh no, we've actually overcome this, and then realized, oh fuck no, this created an angry mob. So it feels to me like it got way more aggressive for what it first was. Like, yes, of course, there was misogyny, there was patriarchy all the time, but it split and it created the nasty element. I read an article by a great journal the other day who was hanging around ISIS and stuff, and he basically said ISIS is all incels. It's just like heaps of guys. No, well, not necessarily, but it's just heaps of guys that are so angry
Yeah.
and kind of don't know what it means anymore, or an identity crisis as such, and then join the force, if you will, and go like, yeah, okay, this is just another way of me expressing
I want
myself.
to kill non-virgins.
Exactly. They're just going to take it out on those 70 virgins that they get.
Oh, that's so gross.
That's such a bizarre concept. I hope we don't get a fatwa.
But
against
It
us.
would be
see
super
this?
interesting, you know, with those concepts. The whole religion is about, you know, is built on these concepts that men are more and women are less, and that's why men dominate.
Yeah.
Jesus was a black woman.
I once read this great book about this by Dan Brown.
I have to leave.
But actually, bizarrely, Dan Brown actually nailed this whole topic really well in a cheap way about how the Catholic Church in particular suppressed women.
And their own homosexuality.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, the whole, let's not go on a Catholic Church riff right now.
Can we go back to the crisis? I'm interested to hear what Rachel says on this. What do you see the crisis is right now? Do you see it as a crisis? Is it a crisis?
And can I add something real quick?
Yes, go for it.
What sectors influence, like what kind of divisions are there between men, and how are the crises different for them? Do you know what I'm saying? The rise of incels, the rise of guys who are feminists, and the rise of guys who use feminism to get laid, etc.
I don't know if it's like a crisis, but it's a reevaluation of gender in general and roles in general, because we have all these possibilities nowadays, and that scares people. It scares those people who had a certain role in mind and they thought, oh, that's the right thing to do, and now they're not that sure anymore. So they're angry at the others.
Okay.
And they put out shame.
I mean, for me, the thing is, like, so there's like the old school role of like men go to war, men chop trees down and bullshit like this. To me, I was brought up by my mum, and so I grew up without this whole kind of masculine, I mean, that shit dads say, like, you gotta be tough, son. I had none of that. I've always found male competition between each other retarded. The moment some guy
don't
wants
use
to
that word
compete with-
anymore, Harry.
because, well, in the context of men competing with each other, it's
an appropriate word,
because it's ridiculous. It's just like, and I've met men since who are just like, anything. It's like you go and have a company offsite where you go go-karting. There's always going to be some dick who's got to go like, and it's like,
And that's just the fun part.
That's me.
You know,
Yeah,
when
exactly.
it comes to who has the biggest sales, who makes the most money, who brings in the most profit. And that's the fucking problem we have. We are exploiting not just the planet, but so many people because of this stupid competition. And this competition is still ongoing.
Can I challenge that? I
Yes.
don't think it's about competition. I think competition is healthy. If you look at it, men are capable of anything men are, right? But I think focusing on the word profit is the problem. So the motivation is always profit, which is exploitative, power struggles, etc., etc.
And because this competition is so much fun, we don't realize how much profit, you know, it's all out of balance. And I think that's why we kind of need... It's all a game.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe we need more empathy. We need more kind of feminism. We need more female leaders.
sorry to interrupt.
Get on the fucking mic, Rachel. God damn it.
I know it's very patriarchal, but
1 second. It's easier for Harry to listen.
No, it's not.
this could be your contribution to podcasting, would be to design a less threatening mic shape. Because there's actually no need for this in the age of modern technology, for this dick shape.
It's a fallacy. Roads are patriarchal misogynists.
So,
I just organized a shooting last week for the Frauenstreik in the Sukkulentensammlung. I have no idea what the cactus place.
Photo shooting.
Yes.
My head went somewhere completely different for a second. This is where we do this.
that's fantastic. So you organize a feminist meetup in the most phallic place.
Yes, you have these gorgeous women and, you know, some of us topless,
axes.
whatever, and having fun. Yeah, it's amazing.
And
I
a
can't
lot
wait
of
to see the photos.
prickly plants.
Yes. And it represents kind of, you know,
fantastic.
business world and
It
big parts of
does.
society.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, but the thing is, I think as far as the crisis goes, I think like somehow we just got to get out of this state of mind that to me, the key word is functioning. Like this word, we have an obsession in society with everyone needs to function. It's even ingrained in the word alcoholism. A functioning alcoholic, that's a good alcoholic. And how ridiculous is that you are so miserable you're an alcoholic with your life, but you function, so that's okay.
As long as you're paying taxes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm talking about this in drug reform too. And
I think that's where you can, out of there, you can reinvent male identity. It's just like, let's stop trying to make, focus on, how much money, how many cars, whatever bullshit.
But will people do that? Because function is comfortable. As long as things are comfortable, we don't feel the need or the urge to change something.
This is why we get
okay. So that brings me to something. We have this. For me, I always thought racism, homophobia, and sexism and all these sort of things, they're kind of dying out. So in my head, it was always, this is a thing that granddad has, or the crazy shitty uncle that gets a little bit drunk at Christmas. Yes. But at some point, these guys will kick the bucket and the world is a better place. But what I realize now is that fuckheads my age are becoming the exact same idiots.
It's making a comeback. Yeah, that's exactly the point of the story with my son's friend. It's just...
Yeah. And that to me is scary. Why is that? Is this the function that comes in because they are comfortable with the gold coins that they can put in their sack?
Because they're too comfortable. They don't have to change, and they don't. They're not challenged enough. I think when we are challenged or really face hardships,
now it's getting interesting because I've got a different point of view on this.
Maybe it lines up with mine, which I'm going to interrupt you right now.
Okay, go.
Being a toxic masculine guy. You're right. No, it's this though. No, where the rise of discrimination with feminism creates a form of hate back. You know what I'm saying? Like with the Nazi situation in America. Now there's Nazis all of a sudden because there's like a movement with Black Lives Matter. There's like a conflict there. No?
Yes, you're right. And here's the thing: is that the first thing is there was a beautiful article in The Economist a few years back about how you could predict political instability by the numbers of teenage boys you had in society. Most Western countries, we're not fucking enough, we're not producing enough children.
Speak for yourself, baby.
versus some parts of the world where they have larger families, which leads to more teenage boys, which leads to more political unrest. Ultimately, and I've seen this from my son, you cannot suppress testosterone. And if you create a world where you say certain thoughts are crimes, you're going to, teenage boys, they exist to find whatever there is and do the shit that's opposite to that. That is like in their nature. So if you give them if you give them a thing that you like, here's the established norm, this is the correct way to do thing, they'll do the opposite.
To the point of self-destruction.
Yeah, exactly. Because they're idiots. But they're idiots, but also not. And to me the thing is like if we remove the focus on function and start looking at things like how do you become a great human being, that's how
but that doesn't create shareholder value, Harry.
It's too soft. Many soft qualities or like feminine qualities are not attractive enough because it's, economy wants us to take medication, have a burnout every now and then, but still do over hours. It's best if we're not too happy, so we invest more in work and we consume more. And that's the issue, the overall issue is profit and the way our economy is built, but then also how are children raised? These boys, what kind of role models do they have? Who can they talk to about different, if they want to explore something differently? I think many people, and especially men, are a bit lost in this whole conversation.
The crazy thing is, and this is where I get a little bit uncomfortable with the toxic masculinity is if you're a boy growing up with your mum, like the parents are split up, there's a good chance that there'll be no men in your life until maybe 10 or 11. Because certainly if a guy's working at a kindergarten, your first thought is there's something we need to look closely at this guy minimum, and
even in primary school,
and I mean, actually, sadly, like having lived life, I still think that. I still think I'm like, if I see a guy that wants to spend a lot of time with young children, I want to take a look at him. If my kids are involved. Yeah, but the point is just fundamentally like there is this suspicion around men, and a lot of it is valid and justified.
Sexual suspicion.
To me, the ultimate, yeah, exactly. Because we have testosterone. It makes us do stupid shit.
And especially, you know, when dominance comes in and wanting power, I think that's a big part of testosterone.
Who the hell's listening to this lady?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, Rachel. Sorry.
Yeah, and which to me goes to like what I would like to see. If I think to fix this thing, it would be stuff like once my son was in a school where they were doing yoga in the morning, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've seen. It's like let's place less effort on learning maths and more on how do you be a happy human being. And if we do that, then the thing about being a guy is that, yes, you get horny. Yes, you have all kinds of horrible thoughts. That's part of you. You're part of the dirt, but you're also capable of amazing stuff. You need to know how to go, okay, I had that thought, but I don't need to act on it. And I can be better than that, but also I don't need to be the guy who's like, "Oh, how are you doing? Oh, I really like you."
That guy either.
Yeah, but well,
transcend your animal nature.
Guy, the super nice guy is A, a liar, and B, not going to get what he wants because women will put him in the friend zone.
Rachel,
I think there are all kinds
We're
of
all over the place.
like. I'm dating the nicest guy I've ever met because I want a man to treat me like a woman.
Okay.
And to respect me in a certain way. So I treat, I'm dating the nicest guy and not the asshole guy who I seek validation from the whole time.
Oh, sure. But there must be, I would assume, okay, maybe we don't want to get into your relationship, but I assume there's something about him sometimes where you see...
go for it. I'm excited. This is starting to. Yeah, do it, dude.
Well, it's just that there's something about him where he could, but he doesn't.
Yeah, he's pussy whip.
Versus no,
you're so high, like he doesn't. He
that's
can't
not what
get
I'm
you
saying. Like there's like, it's like, for example, I can only put this in sexual terms, which is what I'm trying to avoid.
That's such a surprise.
Is that at times you may know he wants to do something terrible to me, but he's going to do it in a way that is like male energy. Is like he expresses
just gets
his male
pegged by
energy.
Rachel.
I love how you brought up male energy and female energy, which is the one, especially sexually. I think we are in a very natural state then, almost a bit animalistic at times.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Sometimes even a bit more. Wow. Yeah, and and here's the question with also the whole consent and just yes is yes is, where do we draw the line of, and also how can you as a man be conscious of those thoughts, but then also be respectful, but then also be your natural self?
Yeah,
when is it all right?
Yes.
Safe word.
3D chess.
Safe word is the best option.
It is, and it also isn't. Like when it's right, you don't need to be analyzing the whole thing. No, like it's clear.
I think this is the danger that this messaging sometimes has. Is it seems way more complicated than it actually is because all it depends on is empathy.
Yes,
and that's the bit. In an overly testosterone manly society, that's the one thing that we try to eliminate as much as we can.
Correct.
But it's a weird,
right.
But it's also a dance because okay, I have a lot of empathy, but I actually have to dial it back sometimes in some dating scenarios because if I show too much empathy, it's like, oh, you're just a pussy, basically.
But
it's a really
this is toxic
but is that your assumption
women.
or is that what people
That's the
actually
feedback I get. It's like from women. I've had not all women, from some women, and I'm not a statistical sample of my sex life, but maybe I'm working on it. I'm working on it being a random survey of all people, but But the thing is there's also a level of like, if you've got to be between. Yeah, I mean, to me, the best metaphor is tango. There's like a push and pull to this stuff,
Of course.
and if you show too much empathy, the reaction can be, oh, you're going to be.
I think you're confusing.
No,
this
that's
with
not
something.
empathy. We're not talking about empathy here.
No, but my empathy gets misunderstood of you're being too nice.
Or
I don't think.
And if it does, it's maybe because we still have these old roles in our mind of how a man should be.
Exactly.
and also the type of person you're attracted to.
And what makes this all very hard is women can be everything nowadays. We can strive for any kind of position, any kind of, the way we want to be, and it's fine. And I think
Reverse cowgirl? Sorry. No. Sorry.
men have to tiptoe around so much more, where it's fine, because for thousands of years they just assumed stuff and, oh, she looked at me, she wants sex, and I'll go for it.
It doesn't work that way?
Just clear this up.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on reverse cowgirl? Because I know it's apparently
It's great in porn. It doesn't work that well in real life.
Yeah, I've had chats with ladies who are like, why the fuck do guys like this shit? It's extremely exhausting. I don't get it myself. Okay, you get to see ass.
People are just lazy during sex.
I get it.
Sorry, it's just me. Fucking hell.
No, you did.
I do all the work all the time.
It was just a beat, I think, Dean. It was, we hit that moment where we all needed to think about reverse cowgirl.
Can I go above real quick?
Let's get out of reverse cowgirl.
Yeah. So feminism is closely linked to capitalism. The patriarchy is too, because of profit and lower empathy. Cool. But what about the ties to free speech? Because I'm a believer that freedom of speech is ultimate. I'm a strong believer in this. So I don't know where the lines are, but I believe if a Nazi exists and he believes that races are terrible, fine. You are allowed to have your opinion. You're allowed to think that. I honestly believe that government should never limit free thought and free speech, because that's when the world's going to go to shit, right? I don't know where the line is, when you act upon it, when you cause violence or paid for someone else, but then it's emotional abuse. I don't know where the line is. But I honestly believe that freedom of speech should be
it's healthy.
Completely
and,
open.
if something triggers you or doesn't align with your thoughts, that's fine too, because, your thoughts might change.
Exactly.
We talked about labeling in the beginning. I think many people use labels, but we also are aware that those labels might not be the same forever. And, the labels change so much faster nowadays. 50 years ago, a label was like that. And, the status quo was unchallenged for 20, 30 years. And now we change labels all the time, and our sexuality. And
trending
now
on Twitter, and then it's done. Yeah.
And I think it's too fast, and people are get a bit lost in all of it. Yeah.
That's interesting to me in a historical context, because when you look at some of the great liberators, say in slavery or whatever, in many cases were slave owners themselves, and kind of just were like, well, maybe it would be a better idea. But it was never this kind of altruistic idea of changing the world. It was more a gradual move forward. And the same goes for feminism. There was I was just reading up on a disaster in New York. There was around the 1900s, there was a fire that basically changed labor laws. There was this this industry in New York where they made shirts for women. And it was kind of like the first time that mass production of clothing happened. And in these sweatshops, it was literally called sweatshops. They were a huge fire hazard. And there was a massive fire. A lot of people died, but it gave rise to women workers to create a social construct that we now profit from. So it basically introduced health insurance, it introduced fire safety, all these sort of things. But this didn't happen because they all were sitting around and having big thoughts about how to change the planet. It was pure necessity.
Yeah.
It was, you know what I mean? It's just sometimes we think that, and this goes with labels as well. We look back and say oh no, they were great thinkers. No, they weren't. In many cases, it was just pure defense mechanism and necessity to change certain things because the pain was just too high to carry. And then stuff happened. And this goes back to this thing that you said about the war. We never had that pain in Switzerland. Therefore, it took much longer to address a social issue. And we basically had to go the intellectual way.
And I think exactly that's why feminism is rising so much more again, because women they're done with their pain.
Yeah.
You know, with the daily sexism, with seeing all this weird porn and being like, okay, that's weird for me. And then men try and do that stuff with me.
You want to ban weird porn? Oh my gosh.
I'm sure you had enough of that.
I already watched.
But like so many women, that's why I think feminism is rising, because those are actually hurt people. And now they're angry. Yeah. And now they want to protect their children or, future generations from that pain. That's why, a Me Too was so huge, because for many women, it was the first time they could actually talk about their pain. They could actually speak out.
I mean, and that's certainly true. I had something blew my mind recently. Someone told me that when it comes to tying your tubes, if you're a woman and you don't want to have children, you're actually not allowed in Switzerland to tie your tubes until something like 35, or if your husband gives you permission. Yeah, which is like, what the? Like, I mean, that just, dude. If someone was to tell me what I can do with my balls and say this is the law, it's going to make me want to like pull out a knife and take it.
You sound like
when I got married.
It's really like, how the fuck?
When I got married in 2008, the default was on the form. The default was that my wife would take my name. That's the default. It's not a question.
Okay.
It's only if you speak up that it would be changed.
Yeah, there was
even that default is fucked up, because you just go like, wait, that's just how we did it.
And it's those tiny things. But if you see those tiny things 10 times a day,
stop talking about my
every single time somebody says something to you it's disrespectful, or things like you're at work and you have, I know so many women who are scared to tell their boss that they're pregnant, because they know either they'll get sacked or they won't be able to work in that position anymore. They know their career is over. If you look at, we have more women who finished university and a master's degree in Switzerland, but then we have like 15% of female CEOs.
Yeah. And this is super crazy, because when you say this out loud, in my head is like, that's the 70s.
Yes.
I've ranted about this before on the podcast. To me, the biggest issue holding women back in Switzerland is attitudes towards that 5 years period where you have small children. Because I've met young couples where the husband and the wife were like, the wife needs to stay at home. And it is beyond... To me, it's beyond retarded. It's
we don't use that word anymore.
Well, I'm all in on retarded because it expresses perfecly. It's retarded.
No, it hurts some people. Freedom of speech, though. You can say what you want.
Well, they're too retarded to listen to this podcast.
No, Harry, fuck you. You asshole.
Okay. Anyway.
No, apologize.
The point, no, I'm not going to apologize for that, because I'm using the word not to talk about people with mental illnesses. I'm talking about the fact that it's backwards thinking, which is another meaning of the word retarded. So it's retarded to think, hey, it's built in. It's built into the the childcare system.
Yeah,
so you have
very much so.
And if you send your children to the horde for the afternoon, people will say to you and your neighbor, "Oh my God, is that true? Oh, do you have to? It means that you're poor." And it's like, no, fuck you. It's like, she wants to work. I want to work. We want to get on with our lives, and we want childcare. It's that simple. But it's based on this ridiculous notion of like the mother is best at home for the kids.
I don't think you're arguing it right, though, guys.
I think I am, because in a city in a city.
You do, because you get it, because you hang around such people. Dean and I are a bit too young. We don't have that many friends who are married or have kiddos yet.
Okay, but
so we don't understand what it's like for 10 from our, friends, if they can't have the career they'd like. And, the women they sit at home, they get more and more frustrated. They have a lower sex drive. They're not happy. They get fatter. That kind of can come from it. Yeah, but and then the man has all the pressure on, and then it's so much harder for them to get back.
For a marriage to break down.
Oh wait, you're putting words in my mouth here, Rachel.
Dean gets triggered by that.
No, it's like this, because I don't think the argument is, or women get pregnant, they're scared, the husband has to support these like standardized old conservative ways of doing things. Once again, it's that whole patriarchal system. The structure is not in service of both genders, of both man and woman, because of that structure.
It's not just the women suffering from it, it's especially the men too.
Yeah.
With all the pressure, with all the the bullshit and stuff they have to make up for.
So you're saying feminism is actually to make men's lives easier?
But 100%.
Yes.
100% it is. And this is so...
It's a genius move.
It's so neglected in the whole conversation. There's a group, Die Feministen, in Switzerland, which tries to talk to that point and get undermined every single time. There was a big arena, I'm not sure if you remember this, where the guy that runs that group was speaking up, and the press went bug fuck. It's just like, no, it's I'm going to use a big word, Harry. Hold on to your asshole. I'm holding.
Squeeze that.
This guy is taking away agency from the women that need it. That was what the press did.
That's a good thing. That's a huge statement.
But it's a wrong statement. It's a wrong statement, because he was trying to make the point that feminism helps everyone. It doesn't. It's not just about Rachel. The way that you described it, the very hardcore turbo feminist group that tries to kill all men. It's not that. It is a way of addressing social issues that are very much felt by men as well in business directly.
But I agree with it though.
But the thing is, to me, it's like, if I was to call this a movement, I'd say, how about we all stop being assholes? We don't. I think it's actually, it is right that this comes from women, because guys are mostly too stupid to get this shit. The flip side is, like, I've like throughout my career, and I've done management. So the first thing is, when I had kids, I was working at a startup, and there was this huge pressure to work until like 10 in the evening. And the thing, a key word, if there's any young fathers listening to this, say to the people as you leave on time, at the time you're supposed to leave, say, or from disconnect, as it were, in a remote office, is simply, the easy part of my day is now over, and now I'm going to go and deal with my children.
That's great. That's great.
That shuts them up. The other thing is just this whole thing of, when I was doing management, I had one guy who I really appreciated. He thanked me, but I wasn't expecting it. It's just like basic stuff, like, you get a message like, oh, I've got to stay at home today, one of my kids is ill. And I was always like, yeah, no problem. Like I want the people in my team to be happy and not stressed. And this whole bullshit around,
you got a great team though.
You've got to you got to arrive. If you're 1 minute late, I mean, those people drive me nuts. School, yeah. And I don't know if it's patriarchy or toxic masculinity. I think it's just fucking idiots.
The power over profit,
That don't understand how people work. It's like, it costs you, if someone arrives late to work, there's a reason. They maybe like had a bad night's sleep, whatever.
Doesn't matter. Your work's done. As long as your work's done, who cares?
Yeah, but have some empathy.
Empathy in the workplace, Harry. One of your co-workers, and I love this, it's a woman, a very powerful, intelligent woman. Probably listening. Shout out. I'm not gonna say her name though. She said to me the other day, we should start soon because I'm worried that Harry will get too stressed when the event comes later. So we're gonna start now, and we were discussing how to plan it so that you're less stressed, because when you were stressed in that time period, it was like driving you crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And I've never heard in a team saying, I'm worried about Harry's health. Let's start earlier so he doesn't have to be crazy. I've never heard that before.
Usually only these conversations usually only start when there was an escalation. So someone had an aneurysm or something. No, I'm honest because I've been there when that happened.
Hemorrhoids in Harry's case.
It's like literally someone collapsing during a meeting, and you go oh yeah, okay, fuck, shit is pretty weird. Maybe we should all look at our health for a little bit. But this lasts maybe 3 months, and then you're back to the old bullshit.
Sure. Okay, but let me throw a curveball. So I think men are making some compromises. They're starting to figure this stuff out. In return, should women be allowed to wear high heels in the office?
Me.
Because
should women be allowed to wear high heels?
Wait, hold up. And I know that whole thing.
Well, it depends, what does a woman feel comfortable with? I identify strongly with feminism and I love it. But at the same time, I love being a ring girl at a boxing match.
You're the best.
I'm exploiting my whole body. I love nude shots and stuff, but it's because for me.
Wait, what?
That's it's very, because I believe in this cultural feminism where it's about, so intrinsically we're the same, men and women.
That's a big word.
I think, we all have a certain degree of empathy. We can work on that. We can all become more and more conscious. But then also every single being has either more or less male and female qualities.
Yes.
And I love expressing and exploring those female qualities because I identify strongly with them.
Yeah. Right.
So if I want to wear high heels or whoever wants to, cool. If you don't want to, if you're a guy, you want to walk into the next business meeting with heels, cool.
Wait.
I need to get on the high heels. Wrap this up.
Rachel. What the fuck? He was like, should women be allowed? You need to be more radical feminist.
I'm going to tell my story, Dean.
You just said, should women be allowed to wear high heels?
Here's why. I'll give you two good reasons. So I worked in an office. We got this hard stone floor, and I had to work in an office with 5 women who maybe they were synchronized. They would all wear the high heels on the same day. It was like working in a fucking herd of horses.
That's
and
funny.
To me, high heels are the most ridiculous symbol of, they make me feel powerful.
Have you ever tried it?
No, and I don't want to.
You don't know.
But
I don't think that women wear heels because it makes them look powerful. Most girls I know, it feels like, it stretches my legs. I look a bit taller. It gives me a bit of a better back. So I will get more attention. People will more likely listen to me and respect me. Which is kind of sad.
Power heels.
I don't know. To me, I treat women very fairly in the workplace. The one thing that really does trigger me is... No, seriously, we can get references. You're laughing and not believing. The one thing that triggers me, I find high heels retarded.
Wait,
stop. I think actually high heels belong to patriarchy. I think
I think they come from there though. For sure.
Okay, it's like why do you want to be
people
like
can wear whatever they want?
What baffles me?
Animal.
What baffles me? You have been in Switzerland for too long because the one complaint that you had tonight is it's literally a noise complaint. That's all this boils down to.
You try and work around.
I'm glad you didn't
people
say
in high heels.
I'm glad you didn't go. They should wear more high heels because they're sexier.
No, it's really fucking annoying.
It's like the tie. Men wear ties. They have absolutely. Why should you wear a tie? But also, it gives you. It's some kind of uniform.
It's a symbol.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But
so you have to point where the dick is, so everyone knows. This is what the tie is.
This is why my tie was too short.
In Swiss German, it's called the Schnappizeiger.
You've actually blown my mind.
Wait, what does that mean?
In 47 years, I never realized why the fuck is that really?
Of course, it is pointy at the end, and you should wear it so it's straight. It should be right above your belt. So this is basically where the journey to happiness starts. It's all that. It's all very phallic.
You're fucking
the
right.
meaning of schnabby, what did you say?
Schnappizeiger.
Context. What does it mean?
It points to the dick pointer.
Dick pointer, yeah.
Dick pointer.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So power ties. See them differently. So this is why Trump had so wide such white ties, so that everyone thinks that he has a chode.
Yeah.
It's just.
I want to go into this because Harry has a great story with it, and Rachel too, and I admire this so much. I don't know if you know this, Harry, but so on your Instagram, and I love this. So there was a guy who catcalled you, and you decided to film him and follow him.
Oh, when guys kind of catcall, I just, first
Lose your
I look
shit.
at them and I'm like, really, dude, if they do it again, I stop and I walk behind them and I breathe in their ear.
Fuck yes.
And they are so uncomfortable. Like,
Pathetic.
I don't fucking care if it's 2 a.m. I will walk right behind you and I'll follow you wherever you go.
I'm gonna
for
catcall
10
you
minutes.
so
I'll
hard
just
later.
follow you. I don't
like
care if I
it.
miss a train, I'll follow you. And they get so uncomfortable. And it's such an easy and, elegant way to show him like, fuck you.
Yeah,
I love that.
Intruding space, which they've already done with their
Yes.
catcalling
We
before.
need that to be
yeah.
a norm, I think.
And I do it the second time because, guys don't know. The first time they do something, they explore where you're, what's okay
What's
for you.
Boundaries,
Yeah, where
exploring
are your
boundaries.
boundaries?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Everyone's a teenager.
So the
They're
first
so
time it's like,
conscientious.
hey, no, stop that. And if they don't respect that, the second time you can go full in.
This is another thing. I've never understood why guys catcall. I've never done it, never understood it.
Like the catcalling is one thing, which I kind of can get. They want attention. But what I don't get is the following you. Guys who follow you, I get that quite a lot. And like, I get stuff like they'll follow me on the tram. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's not cool. Now he knows where I kind of live. Yeah. And because I think that's why feminism has built up, because we women have been so angry for such a long time with all these tiny little situations basically everywhere.
Yeah.
I had a situation.
Yeah, that's right.
I had a situation where I got to feel for once I got to feel like a man. It was actually yesterday, so I went to the hammam. I was chilled. I go to my favorite wine bar. I'm drinking wine. There's these 3 ladies sat next to me. I'm just ignoring them, and then this fucking drunk guy comes along, and I've seen him before, and he's been annoying other women, and he kind of like he's got this stupid grin on his face. Then he goes up to these women, leans over them, and he's like, oh. Like something about this apero they're having. Immediately they're like, dude, can you leave us alone? He won't leave them alone. Bam! I get in there. I was like 2 seconds too slow because I could like I had a slight like I know what this guy's going to do. And I could have intercepted, but I was slightly too slow. But then it got down to like, and this guy was like, yeah, fuck you. And he was speaking Italian and German. I'm like, fuck you. I'm speaking all English. And I gave him the full death stare. Like, and I actually had him kind of under control in the end because I didn't want to fight with him. And I was giving him an option. Said, dude, you need to say peace. And he's like, fuck you. And he tries to hit me with his beer can. And I'm like, you want to bring it? I'm fucking down. Let's go. And I felt very masculine for a short time.
Harry, we should probably talk about which bars you go to.
Yeah.
This is an Italian wine bar. It was like, it's a beautiful
And
place.
that's wonderful because, protection and safety is a very masculine trait.
When Harry's a feminist, I want to have
normally I
sex with
never
him.
have to use these
Don't
things.
talk about my compliments.
Repeat.
I just say when Harry's a feminist, I want to have sex with him.
I was just about to ask you, did you
feel
get a
strangely
number out of this? Did you get a number out of this afterwards?
I actually got some follows on the podcast.
Nice.
That's what all right.
Very
But,
nice.
in the first moment, you didn't do it because you wanted their attention, just because something in you was like, hey, this situation is not okay.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a weird thing. Since I've become a dad, I get this a lot where it's just like, I do what needs to be done.
And I wish all men kind of would live up to that more, whether it's locker room talk or whatever, where they're like, hey, this situation is actually not okay, so I will call it out.
Can we talk about this for a second?
Locker room talk is a holy thing, though. We got to. That's a
What's the women equivalent of locker room talk?
It's also called locker room talk.
No, but
I
I don't
think-
imagine women in the locker room going, his dick was this small. Like, you guys share dick pics.
Yeah, and we
You
talk
laugh at
about
how-
those situations,
you
of
laugh
course,
about
but I
how
think
ridiculous
never
men
to such a disrespectful degree. More like
No.
because women are like more romantic. Like, how did it make you feel? And
Okay, hold up. That
Okay.
locker room talk is like, this is the male period. Okay, so let me explain this in terms. Do you know what? I'm slightly jealous of women because if
They have boobs.
yeah, exactly. If I get on social media and I had a great tits and ass,
You do.
I would, yeah, but not like this. I would get immediate, like, thousands of followers. The followers I have on Instagram, I've had to work for every one of those by doing something funny. Like, I have to fucking work for that.
Yeah, but those followers are good for you.
If you're a hot chick, you get immediately just
and
free.
then you have to cope.
Misogynistic
Then you have to
TikToks.
cope with the comment section,
And
which
the
is
dick
probably
pics.
one of the nastiest things.
Don't go there a second. The fun is you get attention so easily. And as guys, we don't get that. There's nothing about the male
That's fine.
look. And even if, I mean, occasionally, like, you got a guy with a six-pack who's super musty and hot. Okay, he gets some free attention, but mostly it's not free because he had to fucking work to have that body.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
And the girls didn't.
So the locker room,
Rachel just sits on her ass all day.
the locker room talk, and I've had locker room talk with these two motherfuckers who are being very feminine. Well, no, Christian's being very, Dean's with me. The point is this: it's like it's a vent. It's that we say horrible things. We try. I mean, as comedians, we say the worst possible things.
It's all about context.
And it's not that we actually mean any of that stuff.
No, but
It's
I
that
think
it gets it out of our system.
It's something different because Rachel, I think I have an idea what type of conversations that you're referring to, and it's very toxic in a professional situation where you
Give me an example.
So I'm treading lightly here. In a time where I worked for a different company than I work now.
Shout out to UBS. I'm a client. I can say anything.
There is there are lines which in a professional environment you don't cross, even if you had a few.
Yeah.
And I've seen it more and more and more times in that particular setting where especially men with a mediocre power, like the lieutenants, you know, they're not the big dog. They're just in between the plebs and the big dog.
The guys with the small dicks.
Yeah. Where they would start.
I delete.
Go ahead.
He was like,
He was choking on that small dick.
We're comparing management ability to dick size, but you're probably right.
the statistics.
So guys with some power, but not ultimate power, using their position to then force certain topics or conversations that made everyone uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And
then
no one speaks up. No one speaks up because of that fucked up hierarchy.
Yeah, you're scared.
Where and this is not just about sexism; it's also racism.
Yeah.
It's homophobia. And all these sorts of, like, you know, some guy rocks up in a pink shirt and then goes,
Goddamn F word.
Michael looks a bit gay today.
I'm going to throw in a funny angle here. Is people talk a lot about their boss bullying them or asshole behavior. Bullying is a two-way thing, and I have a point of view that upsets people. There is the person doing the bullying, and then there's the person allowing themselves to be bullied. Now, you may have a lot of issues that make it very hard for you to deal with it. Most people are just going with the status quo, and when they see shit like that, they're like, oh, like I'm putting my life at risk. No, fucking act,
Yeah, some people
motherfuckers.
can't though.
No, and we were talking about issues, mostly it's some kind of daddy issues men and women have. And it says,
Harry
you
loves
want this lieutenant, the CEO, whoever, who, you know, you want his love. You want his,
God.
you
Yeah.
know?
You've actually just blown my mind. Does this explain everything?
It does.
Daddy issues in
We
most
all have
cases.
daddy issues.
But what about the mummy issues? Where does that fit into this?
Mostly weird sex things.
Fetish.
It's
But because, you know, and that's why, daddy would act like that, so we'll do everything to please him, and so he's comfortable. And that's why some people raise into these, you know, also through manipulation, of course, into these certain positions.
Yep.
But we're all their bitches.
I mean, fundamentally, I think long term, the whole idea of hierarchy and people in positions of power it just got to go away.
You didn't say it. Thank you, Harry.
Well done.
But I didn't say it because I was bored of using the word. I thought I'd never used it.
So are we. And
but the thing is, it's like if you look at we can eliminate this stuff. We're going to edit, Dean.
I'm chill.
We can, because I think there's an interesting conversation. I don't know how we can edit this into something without censoring or whatever. But the point is that we don't need hierarchies anymore. That shit is done. And to me, I've always found it ridiculous, the notion that someone can be at the top of a company and I'm in control of this company. No, you're not, because do you know the number of micro decisions being made every minute of your company that you're not involved with? You're a figurehead, and it's based on a completely ridiculous concept.
Which is a great thought, but how can we get there? We get there through radical groups, through, of course, people and education and people also standing up. It makes it a lot easier to stand up when you can be in a group, when you can label yourself as something, and when you can use some kind of excuse to get there.
Give them an AK-47.
I guess.
Let them be ISIS. Fight the power.
There are some very interesting concepts out there. I wanna name two. There is a Republic, which you are probably familiar with, the newspaper, which has been trying to introduce very flat hierarchical concepts where authority is a function of your role rather than a hierarchy, and there is no concept of ownership because it's basically owned by a trust.
What about the profit, Christian?
That's exactly the problem. I have a friend. I'm just looking up the website. I'm having a friend that created a doctors association called Südland in Switzerland. It basically operates under the same dogma. So it's not an for-profit company. It's a co-op. So I think the biggest structural issues when it comes to, I'm staying with the business angle here, Rachel, because you've introduced it so nicely before, because power is usually associated with capital, and capital then translates into these hierarchical structures. So if you're the owner, you basically call the shots. But if you make ownership part of everyone that works there, then automatically your power distributes within the group because suddenly everyone has the same voting rights. And Südland, this company, does exactly that. They're trying that model within the company, and therefore also adjust. There's a whole different conversation about remuneration, for example, because it's not a for profit. All the profit that they do make goes back to staff members. And that is a completely different angle how to approach this, and it makes it all more egalitarian, which in a nicely bow comes back to feminism, because that's what we ultimately want, right? It becomes a more egalitarian society.
Super interesting.
Sorry, that was
fucking boring shit.
I love that idea.
Super interesting. That's crazy.
Because before we talked about functional, that right now was constructive, and I believe in constructive because functional is too comfortable. We don't have to change because it works. It's fine. Yeah. But constructive is taking something and making it better, and not just in an optimistic way, but in a way that, with small changes that it can actually work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we should castrate everyone. Tie everybody's tubes, castrate everyone, ruse men's balls.
No, I should just fire McKinsey. Which, if we get rid of McKinsey in Switzerland, I think most issues around capitalism are done.
I think that was a great point, and I'm holding back on the dick joke that I could have made about a functional versus a. But because this is how that, and there's a bunch of stuff coming. Like, okay, we don't do financial advice here, but there is a cryptocurrency called Cardano, which I'm a big fan of, and because they start looking at these issues and they have a system built way of of building in like decision making, where you don't have a boss in this system. It's purely based on the interests of the people acting within the system. And to me, years ago, I read this Arthur C. Clarke book, which predicted a future where you have no president except for one person who's elected by a computer. And one of the criteria for their election is they don't want to do the job, which I thought is a utopian idea. But fundamentally, like to me, power is broken. It's deeply broken.
Imagine like profit was removed from government.
Wow. Yeah.
They didn't get paid.
Yeah.
Wow, shall we change the world?
I think we just solved all the problems, guys.
We got lost of finding out when men are in crisis and what the future is here, though. I thought you were going to go into our childhoods as well.
Yeah, what about the notes here?
Would you like to?
Let's do it. Come on. I don't know where we are on time. Does
What I
anyone
found
have to
super
rant?
interesting about your story, and thanks for sharing, is that you didn't have kind of like a father role, but at the same time, you must have had a lot of men and boys around you who you could identify with.
Not really. My brother is 8 years older than me. He was always away. I guess the profound thing of my ego, because we all know about that on this podcast, came from my grandmother. I used to come home from school every day. We would play like backgammon and other games, and she would, I believe, deliberately lose and then tell me how amazing I was. And I had like 7 years of this through primary school.
That's not healthy.
It's fantastic because
I'll never play chess with Harry.
seriously, my fundamental worldview is that given enough time, I will win. I genuinely, I still believe that in any situation of hardship, this has got me through all kinds of stuff because it's a genuine belief that I'm going to be successful. And I don't mean successful at someone else's as someone else's detriment. It's that I'm going to find a way to get through this.
A woman caused Harry's toxic masculinity.
That's fantastic.
No, it's not toxic masculinity. And in retrospect, she died long ago. But to me, this was a deeply I've understood it later. This was a genius move by her because my mom came back from Germany. She left my father there, and a lot of the time I was at my grandmother's place because my mom was working. And my grandmother thought long term. She's like, I'm going to turn this guy into a little asshole. And she's
also into a typical winner guy. You know, as a little boy, you learned, I'm a winner. I can win anything. I'm cool. I'm great. I'm amazing.
Yeah, she won't sleep with me. I'm angry now.
And with girls, the good girl syndrome, where kind of girls are, you have to be cute, you have to behave well.
And now we're getting somewhere interesting.
Which is super interesting. Yeah.
Because I have a theory that what fucks women up the most is mothers. Now that's it. Because the relationship between mothers and daughters, Dean's tapping out here. And maybe we need to end this podcast because I think a lot of this. There's two things. The two, and I'm talking secondhand. I've got a daughter, and I've observed some of this. There is a shame that's passed mother to daughter for generations about all kinds of stuff about how you've got to behave and censoring, which comes from the mother. The other thing is. And I want to do this in comedy one day, but I've yet to find the right way to do it. This topic of slut shaming, yes, guys play a role in this, but when I was at this boarding school I was talking about earlier, what I saw was the main instigators of slut shaming were women, and there was like two groups in my class. There were two alpha females and they were after each other. And I got to, the great thing about boarding school is you're with your peer group for most of the day.
Yeah.
And I got to observe the shit they pulled. And I was like, not like nobody wanted to have sex with me or whatever, because I was a little dweeb. So I instead of getting upset by it, I just observed what was going on. It was fascinating. And this whole idea of like women's sexuality, I think there is a big issue that Yeah, like if you're an attractive woman, I don't know if you are, maybe you are. That's a joke, but you probably get to deal with jealousy.
Hey, women hate me.
All
Mostly
right.
when I enter a room, I get into a new team. I started over 8 times so far, moved schools and whatever. And wherever I go, I know like, oh, I can be the kindest, nicest person. They won't like me.
My daughter has the same, you've seen her. She's quite attractive. She's kind of a nerd, and she's starting to confront this stuff.
It's super interesting because that was kind of the topic of my TED talk. And it's based on, we want equality. Well, we can get there if women stop hating on other women.
Yes, absolutely.
In every area, I think, because we are raised to be each other's competition, but not in a healthy way. And we can't really, live out this competition. It's just like, oh, you should be this, this, and this. And if you don't conform to that, but somebody else does, you hate her. If she gets more attention or whatever, I think it's a massive problem between women that they don't really support each other.
Yeah,
I think with men, it's like, oh, you're an asshole, but I can still work with you.
Absolutely.
I don't agree on this and this, but cool. With women, everything has to be all right, and then they can work with each other.
Right.
I mean, for me, the way I've always looked at this is that men are predictable. So I learned this at school because there was one friend who, if you got in a fight, he was there for you. There's a whole bunch of stuff that he was just the perfect friend. You did not leave your girlfriend with him. If you left your girlfriend alone with him, he was going to try and...
But that's where you learned it from.
Yeah. What? What I learned from this guy was that, and it was just the thing, but he was predictable. That was the one thing where you couldn't trust him. And once I understood that, I could trust him completely and know what the limits were. And I think like that's the thing that goes on between men, is that I can work with someone that I fundamentally despise, but still, it's like we're going to find a way. And I think with what I've observed is that with women, there is an unpredictability about how you guys screw each other up.
All these emotions.
Yeah.
I believe it stems from all the emotions. And what is super interesting, that's why the Vrouwenstreik was so... It was groundbreaking because you had all these women come together to support each other. And that rarely happens.
Yeah.
You will have, maybe a friends group and, they're all the same girls. They vent about other girls. That's what they do. We don't do locker room talk because we're too distracted talking about other girls.
That bitch Brittany, oh my God.
And it's super interesting. I think if
Triggered.
that would change so much.
What do you think that stems from, though? Because this seems to be...
comes down to a nature versus nurture argument. Is this...
No.
Which is interesting because also back then... in Stone Age, it wasn't that women had to fight for the man and he, had to take care of the baby. Then also at the same time, women would stay together, support each other. I think it becomes we are raised to be each other's competition.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That actually makes sense.
I wonder if there is cultures where that doesn't happen that often. Because is there...
When it's not that superficial, the more superficial it gets, the more... Yeah,
that's fucked up.
Polygamy, like in South Africa.
Yeah, it's awesome.
They have a community-based family raising situation.
Yeah, I mean, you're convincing me there because it's like a lot of pre-Christian religions worship mother goddesses, and the femininity was worshipped as the ultimate power.
Worship the power of the female orgasm.
Bit of a interesting thought. So, the men are the contrary of women, yes. But if I see anything in a man, it either attracts me
or it repulses.
With women don't attract me because I'm sexually not attracted to them. So if anything, I either like them and I identify with her, or I'm triggered by her. And with men, it's like, oh, I kind of like him, and then there's the sexual energy.
But they can
but
fuck
with
up
women,
a bit more.
it's kind of different.
Do you give them leeway to be worse if you're sexually attracted to that person?
It's just different. It doesn't feel like, I think with women, it's like, oh, she's different. That triggers me. That means something is wrong with me because we should all kind of, that means something is wrong with me. So I have to change her or be against her. With men, it's like, oh, he's different anyway.
This is why you're not calling us out.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
We were all over the place. I think the reason for feminism is because men are not good for anything. There's no more lions to fight. Have you guys fucked up in the workplace or in any kind of setting where you were a misogynist? Like, how did that happen? What did you learn from it? Did you apologize, or what's going on there? Can I start with mine?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You guys just like, yeah, dude, tell us how much of a dick you were.
I know nodding works really well on a podcast.
It's an audio format. I was working in a very toxic masculine environment. It was called.
No, don't.
No, I can't.
Okay. It was,
The bosses were men, and it was very testosterone based and power and hierarchy, and you had to find your space and fit there, right? So I did this. I learned a lot. I fucked up. My intention, I hope, was good. It sounds terrible though. A woman came into the office to apply. Thanks for your patience. She came to the office to apply as a worker. She was going to go probation, but she had to do a test, right? No one was in the office. I went up to her. I was like, "Oh, hey, how you doing? What are you doing here? Cool to meet you." And she was writing a test. I was like, "That's great. You're applying to work here. We're going to be co-workers. What I think would work is if you show your boobs." That's what I did. Right?
Which is a funny comedy. That's a comedy, like...
It's terrible. It's fucked up. It's super fucked up. In my mind, I'm going, "Oh, that's what I did." She'll laugh. She'll feel comfortable because I know the environment here is extremely locker room talk. If you can't handle that, you're going to fucking hate working there.
Yeah.
Right? But I did it in a way that was like, we're equals. I showed my boobs. I got in. The homosexual kind of jerk, they think I'm hot. Maybe they'll think you're hot. I don't know. This is terrible. It's a terrible thing to say. And what happened is like, then she complained about it. She didn't get the job. And obviously she complained about it. She should have.
Yeah, but the thing is...
Hold up here. Let me finish it.
Okay, go ahead.
So they complained and they were like, "Who said this?" And I was like, "Fuck, I said it, guys." And what was shocking is that she said, "If this was America, I would have sued you guys."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Well, you should still be able to." Oh wait, Switzerland. There's no like protection for this. It's
nothing.
Not really.
Yeah, but you know what's funny about this story is that you were reflecting the truth, and you wanted to make a connection to her on not. You weren't being a creepy sexual dude.
Yeah, it wasn't sexually driven.
Why don't you show your tits like I did?
Yeah.
And it was to say, basically, like
this place is fucked up.
This place is fucked up.
Don't work here. I think I did her a favor.
And I, you kind of did actually do her a favor that she didn't take the job.
But like Christian also taught me is that from now on, professional workplace, it's they and everyone is like exactly the same gray Lego person.
Yeah, but
there is no more gender.
I think to me the point is just simply you create a nice layer of where certain things are never said because we all know they're wrong, but the underlying fucked upness of it remains.
And this is what we bring out in the pub.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you guys?
I was called out by an ex-girlfriend of mine on behavior, which I wasn't aware, and I've kind of mentioned it on this podcast before. You mentioned this thing before about guys following women. There is a thing about not crossing the street. Okay, so this is what happened. I was walking home, and there was a woman in front of me, and I just didn't care, and was actually looking at my phone. And just walking home, and that woman was not my girlfriend yet. And
that's amazing. This is a great story. 5 minutes later, she was your girlfriend.
Wait for it.
So, this journey was up to a tram or whatever it was, and then everything went away. And a couple of months later, we started dating. And she basically said, "Dude, if a woman walks down the street alone and you follow her, cross the fucking street, because it makes people uncomfortable, even if you don't realize what you're doing." And it's something that I didn't pick up because my defense was I didn't know this is Switzerland. I was much more aware of these things when I'm in London. When I work in London, I was much more aware of where I would stand and who I would look at, or all these sort of things. In Switzerland, it's kind of like, whatever, nothing bad happens here anyway. No, it's not even that. Not even that. But just like whatever. You don't really have to be conscious on when you sit on a tram or anything like that. And when you're in a tube at night in London, especially when you live in East London or something, you might consider certain things. But I was just literally not thinking about this, how I made someone else feel by my sheer presence. And it wasn't that I was breathing down that person's neck. There was distance, but because it was nighttime, because it was no one else was around, it suddenly that other person felt uncomfortable.
It's because you followed her.
I was following her. No, so it was just that thing. And this, I did put it down to some form of misogyny by not caring enough to understand what I would create in someone else.
Yeah.
That's my story.
So question, 2 women are walking both sides of the street.
I jump in front of the tram.
Do you walk into traffic and hope for the best?
I'm waiting for the biggest Mercedes G-Class driving down Seefeldstrasse that can take me out.
I mean, I deal with that thing the whole time, and to me, I actually see myself as the victim on this, because if I go for a walk at night, the looks I get, and I'm
You're scary.
Yeah, but I'm also more like, fuck you for assuming that I want to do anything to you.
fact that
Harry,
they
you
have
should
to
start wearing high vis. It would change everything. As soon as you wear a high vis, you're official. You're allowed to be there.
I mean, I did it. I have even a bit about this. It's like if I go for a walk in the woods at night just to chill out, I know that I've got nothing to be afraid of because I'm the scariest looking motherfucker in the wood. And it's a bizarre thing that we've created this whole thing about how evil. But
it's sad that women have to do this. I mean, I've never had to put keys in my hand.
That's terrible
context. I do it at
so
home.
bad.
I'm angry.
I'm trying to think of a time where I've done something.
Every episode of this podcast.
Yeah, okay.
We're looking back 51 episodes of the XYZ podcast, and Harry profusely apologizes for all the harm that he has done.
Does not represent my opinions at all.
I mean, certainly, comedy-wise, I was trying to do a joke, but I don't know. I never sexually harassed anybody. Never.
That wasn't the question.
No, I mean, I'm trying to find a crime that I've committed.
I never touched her in the red zone.
I mean, one thing is
only the green.
One thing is at work. I have a very strict policy. Is that, and this is vulgar, but I don't shit where I eat, because you don't mix sex with
That's
work.
great, yeah.
Like, just don't do it. Like,
words to live by. Tell me.
Yeah,
that's just my art director.
Because even and I'm a little bit flirtatious with some people.
You what?
But not in the sense of trying to get something from them. It's more like, let's have fun.
There's always a line.
Now, maybe there's one of those people that wants to tell me that actually I'm an asshole, and maybe I'm unaware of that.
That's
leave it in the comment section of the XYZ podcast.
Yeah.
Rachel,
An example?
if you want.
Hey, super interesting. So I'm so conscious about female empowerment and seeing other women as a part of me and some kind of, sister. But I did have a roommate who triggered me so hard. And it was like, wow, how can I not hate her? How can I embrace that? She's just a very different type of woman than I am, but it's hard. It would have been so much easier to trigger her back, to say exactly what, I wouldn't know what would hurt her.
Can we say what? So, okay.
Yeah, why did she trigger you?
What was the trigger?
Like all kinds of things. Like, in every aspect, if you'd have like a woman who would be the complete opposite of me, it would be her.
Smaller boobs kind of thing.
It's super interesting. So she's like, in every aspect, just very different. And we'll have conversations with like, oh, I'll go ring girl. And she's like, I cannot understand how you can do it. Putting on the shame. And a very different kind of person. Yeah. And then with all these, then living with somebody like that. And it was so interesting for me because it was like, I was going through a phase where it's like, we can all live in peace on this planet. And it's like, wow, you live with somebody.
Was this hate boot camp for you?
Yeah, but also then to realize you don't have to lash out. You don't have to talk bad about, behind her back with the other roommates. You don't have to manipulate her. You don't have to be unfriendly. You can still live with that. You can still sit with that, even if it triggers you. And then also, what do those triggers show you?
Yeah, you have a lot of power like that.
Well, it's a reflection on yourself in a way. Yeah.
Oh, it's hard and it can be super annoying. And every single time you come home, it's like, oh my gosh.
Sounds like Harry.
But it's important.
Did she just need the right penis in her life?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's do this. Rachel.
Sounds a little bit like
Harry, enough about the
She was
penis talk.
jealous. She
Harry,
wasn't getting it.
Harry, no.
Thank you, Harry.
Rachel.
Hey, guys, I love this. Thank you for being so open and sharing all your amazing opinions.
Yeah, we love having
I
you here.
respect them a lot. No, seriously, I learned a lot today. So thanks.
Thanks for being here, and we would love to have you
for
back.
doing a great ending for the podcast.
Wait.
plugs.
Relax, dude. If you want to look at Rachel's amazing Instagram, you can find her at
You can find me with Rachel Hill or honey.rebel.
honey.rebel. Yeah.
But Rachel
follow
Hill.
her, check her out there. Also, you're doing a podcast lately.
Yes,
You wanna
well, it's
plug
not
that?
out yet, but you can find it under Himmel and Höll podcast.
Cool.
It's
Swiss
with
German.
Hamza Raya together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Swiss
Swiss
German,
German.
if you want to dive into that.
If you want to throw up while listening to a language,
Shut the fuck up.
But you'll find the information on my Instagram.
Cool. Anything else you want to plug?
I'm fine, thank you again.
Yeah, apart from your boyfriend's butthole. What? Rachel, we love you. Thank you so much.
I have some plugs. For fuck's sake.
This is no, I didn't hit it.
We're professional. We're a professional brain podcast. Okay, so this comes out on Tuesday. Guys, Comedy House. We're back at Comedy House with more comedy. If you guys are interested here in Zurich, we're gonna have a show on the 24th. Am I saying this right? Yes, 24th of June. We are back at Comedy House. Hopefully with an international guest. We don't know yet. And figuring stuff out on the fly. I'm doing comedy tomorrow, but no, this will be too late. So,
Christian's got a career. What about you, Harry?
We have shows Sunday night, Ale House, and then
that's
the
a great
rest.
show.
Yeah, that's a
Are
fun
you
show.
coming?
What day is that?
That's 2 days ago by the time you listen to this
Fucking
podcast.
idiots.
Yeah.
There
Come
was
to this
something.
Sunday's cast.
And Frauenstreik. Let's big up the
Yes.
Frauenstreik.
No men allowed.
14th of June.
If you're a
14th
woman, get down to the
Yes.
Frauenstreik, support the sisters. If you're a guy, hang around in a nice way and you might get laid. That's what
That is the worst.
That's the best selling point ever.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Small penis show.
Can I have a
Rachel. Yeah.